Hey guys, it's Taz101 Saga joining you for some LMG love. So a few months ago I purchased this classic Army M249 Para, which was of course laid out in the American format, and I've converted it to a British service L110A1, the version of the Mini-Me. So I'm going to talk on this video, it's specifically about what I've changed on it to convert it to an L110A1. It's not a review. I've only used this thing once, so I don't feel that's anywhere near enough to discuss performance and stuff like that. That's going to come at a later date. However, that being said, let's get right into it. So one of the first things that I've changed is in fact something that was pointed out by a member of the Airsoft M249 owners group on Facebook. I forget your name, but thanks very much for that tip. Was to file the gas block pin flush with the gas block. This kind of made sense in a way, actually, considering that we don't use the heat shield that's common on the M249 and painted them black. So the gas regulator is unchanged, but it's actually adjustable in this gun. Obviously it doesn't function. It's a feature on the real firearm that adjusts the amount of gas that's being recycled from the projectile explosion back into the gas system. If you're using blanks or firing in adverse conditions and the gun's dirty, etc. But it was a nice little touch actually, they put that on. I didn't even notice that actually moved until I'd had the gun quite a while. The barrel I acetoned to give it the kind of look that it's had the finish worn off a little bit. This was very sort of glossy and black when I got it, but since the last video, if you backtrack to the unboxing, you'll see the difference with these parts. I've weathered a lot of these parts to give the impression of being used in theatre and such, because all guns after a few months in theatre look pretty worn because they're being battered every day. Haven't battered the handguards, however these are changed from the original. These are the Mark 1 style handguards. The Mark 2 of the M249 has kind of these corrugated slits in the side. It looks a little different in appearance. This is an original British Army sling. It's got my details there, but actually there's somebody's name, which is read this way up. I can't read it. Starts with R, so that's pretty cool. That came off eBay for about £20. I have seen a number of photos of this sling being used, but also a standard SA-80 sling in some applications. So moving back, I've got the classic Army 1200 round auto-winding box magazine. The only modification I've made to this is I've painted it basically a tan colour to sort of go with the sling and the kind of Afghan look. This little popper here does normally attach to another one, so you can tie the zip up and stop it from moving. I cut that off because personally for me there's no reason to have that extra secure. It's just another step that I've got to undo when I want to reload the box mag. I don't currently have the feeder installed right now, so the belt's just kind of loose. These are of course real inert 5.56 NATO rounds. The airsoft plastic ones you can get just look total shite. They don't look realistic at all. The only thing that isn't quite realistic about these is obviously they have dented primers, because obviously they're fired cases with another bullet head put in the top, because that's how they make the inert rounds. So if you can find some with primers that are soaked in oil so they still appear live, that would look even better. But I've had these for years and years. I just bought some M27 NATO links, which you can get on the internet for about 30-40p a piece. I think there's about 13 rounds on here. Now if you want to put some inert rounds in, which I recommend you do because it really completes the look, you're going to need a few, but there is the real kind of little bits here on the feed tray, so you can actually lay the rounds on the feed tray and it will hold them in. I have also looked for a starter tab, but the only ones I've been able to find are all for sale in the US and not worth the cost to get one over here. So if anybody does know where I can get one in the UK, please let me know, because I'd be very interested in actually obtaining one of those. The receiver itself hasn't been changed much. The safety is still the same. It's a standard push button. When you see red, it's going along. Something I did change on the trigger though is the first time I used it, it worked totally fine for most of the day, which was surprising because it's a Airsoft M249, which generally are plagued with reliability problems. The micro switch in the trigger though, that did actually get stuck. So you let go of the trigger and the gun carries on firing, and at some point it will just stop. So what you do is just turn off the box mag so it's dry firing. So I've changed that to one I got on eBay, and it's been totally reliable ever since. We've been in a lockdown ever since I upgraded it all, both internally and externally, so I haven't been able to take it to another game yet, but I've done a lot of test firing in the house as I've been messing around with the internals, and it hasn't stuck again since. It has a much stronger return spring as well, so it's got a lot more pressure to reset it when you let go of the trigger, so I'm hoping that will have fixed the problem. The only thing that I haven't installed on this is the British rear sling adapter, which goes here. It's a little piece like that. I have not been able to find one, but if anybody does know where I can find one in the UK, please let me know. Apologies for the dog barking in the background. I have the sling attached here, that's purely preference. It would normally go up here. I've taped the butt plate, the little shoulder rest that comes up, because it doesn't actually work on this gun. They haven't made it at the right angle, so when you actually flip it up and put it on your shoulder, it just does this. So I've taped it down and I don't use it. By far the largest change is the top cover. It started out as a Mark II, which has the standard 20mm Picatinny rail. I managed to source a Mark I top cover off of Jan. Thanks very much, Jan. Sending that all the way from Eastern Europe. I've also added the SUSAT rail, which requires the Mark I cover, so you've actually got somewhere to mount this. This is actually not 100% correct, because the real one is actually slightly longer and a little higher too. This is for an ICS L85, but it's actually the closest thing you can get to the real rail, because as far as I know you can't buy the real rail. The only thing you can get is the full complete top cover, which obviously is a bit overkill, just for the sake of this. The reason you need this though, to be raised up a little, is so you can add the British Service back sight. This is easily removed, however. You just unscrew this pin, pull it out, and you can slide it right off. So this is the British back sight. You have your windage here. There's no elevation. That's done with the front sight on these. It is only a backup as well, so it's not supposed to be super easy to adjust. You just zero the gun in and that's it. So you have a 300 meter aperture, and then you can switch it up to a 600. So normally you'd have a SUSAT mounted on top of here, and they also had adapters to mount the ACOG, which was kind of an urgent operational requirement. As for SUSAT, I don't have any plans to actually mount one. This isn't bolted on, it's actually epoxied on, so because I wasn't going to mount anything on it that has any real weight to it, this doesn't really weigh much, so I wasn't too concerned about actually drilling and tapping the holes in the end. I didn't sort of see it as worth the effort, so it's actually just epoxied on, but it's proper hard resin, so there's no way that's going to snap off. So the only other change I've made to it, now that we've flipped the gun around, is removing this stock pin. There is normally a much larger end cap on here, although that's not really correct. I haven't sort of seen any pictures of that. So that's the stock pin, and now that allows you to, of course, remove that and access the quick change spring. So I've replaced it with just this little nut, which is a lot closer to how the at least the British ones tend to look. And the rest of it has just undergone the usual kind of exterior refinishing. This was obviously a lot more fake looking, where it had the very glossy kind of black colour, but now I've put kind of the strategic wear in places where there'd be friction, for example on these rails, because in reality every time you have a stoppage or you're reloading, you're going to be cycling the action and locking it back to the rear and returning the cock and handle forward. Other than that, I've simply just placed some gaffer tape around the carry handle. Don't use it too much as a carry handle, be gentle with it. It's actually for removing the quick change barrel. Talking of the quick change barrel, the only other upgrade I've put into this is the ball gear hop chamber. I did have to file this down, as you can see why it's actually silver. Normally it's the same colour as the adjustment dial, but I had to file some of it down because it wouldn't fit inside here when it's supposedly a drop-in modification, so I'm not sure what that was about. Other than that, it's Mad Bull, full name there. Yeah, it's a Mad Bull Python Type Bore 6.03. The reason I like these is that they're very light, and for what is already a gun that's a little heavier than your standard rifle, I wanted to try and keep it as light as possible. That's why I haven't added any goofy stuff to it, and I converted it into just a simple L110A1. You see there, you can see the yellow maple leaf bucket, and hopefully that's focusing. I did have to modify this slightly because it wasn't feeding properly. Like I say, these are supposedly a drop-in fit, but it wasn't the case for me. I had to make a little mod there so there was a bigger hole for the BBs to come in, and now it feeds 100% reliably. If you are having an air seal problem though, try pulling the bucking so you can see it through the hole. You can see there it's slightly visible rather than having it forward. That means that there's more contact between the nozzle and the bucking, and that fixed my air seal problem. That was an issue I was having when I used it. It was shooting kind of 260, 270 FPS, and it kind of looked a little low on the day, but I had no idea it was that low. So I fixed that problem now. So do try that if you're having an air seal issue. Otherwise, make sure that your piston is obviously, do a compression check with the piston in the cylinder and all that good stuff. And that's it for all the upgrades. The only other thing I've done is I've rewired it to Dean's connector. That's just my preference, as it is with many. And I've changed the spring, fixed the shimming, and other than that it's pretty much all stock. The motor's actually stock because there's nothing wrong with it. It gives you the realistic rate of fire with the kind of 350 FPS spring I've put in. So that's it for now. If you've got any questions, please feel free to post them down below in the comments. And if anybody does know where to get a starter tab for NATO Lynx 556, please let me know once again. I really want one of those. And don't forget to rate, comment or subscribe. Thanks for watching. Take care.